They're saying they had no idea, but I was reading that the numbers have been botched for 10 years, so that's a long time to have no idea.
I think it was like a decade-long mistake just in the methodology. That is a little bit disconcerting.
It is a little embarrassing that the mission staff did mess up a lot, because I looked at the percentage. It was like they said 78 and it was actually 58, and that's not a little error, that's a lot. That's a big error.
Yes, it is. Kelly's Court is back in session. On the docket today, a school ranking scandal. You just heard a couple of students from George Washington University reacting to the news that their prestigious school is maybe not so prestigious. It's now been booted off of the U.S. News & World Report's list of college rankings. Parents across the country use this, and children, would-be college students, to decide where they're going to go to school. The university losing its spot at number 51 now is going to be placed in the unranked category. Oh, the horror. The reason? The university has now admitted that it's been misreporting its statistics for years, inflating its standing. So is there any recourse for the parents who have kids there right now and who chose the school based on the false ranking? Joining me now, Joey Jackson, former prosecutor, now defense attorney, and Brian Claypool, a defense attorney. So there was a little error for 10 years, Joey, where instead of reporting, because they have to give these data to U.S. News & World Report about how great they are, and one of the data that they have to submit is how many freshmen were in the top 10% of their high school classes coming into your university. And they were reporting 78%. When it was 58%,
yeah,
so they were off by 20%.
That's a little bit of a problem, Megan. I feel bad for the students who were there, who relied upon what you could say is either an intentional misrepresentation or a negligent misrepresentation. But either way, the university should know better, and certainly the students and the parents deserve better. Furthermore, Megan, not only do we get to the issue of negligent or intentional misrepresentation, but you can also talk about fraud in the inducement. How? Because these students were induced into attending this university based upon what they relied to be a ranking that they felt was substantive and accurate.
Yeah.
What do we know? It was not.
What about those students who want to move on to professional school, Brian, who are planning to go to law school or med school or, get another graduate degree, who thought they'd be emerging from a university that was ranked 51st, but now has no ranking and has the tar of an alleged fraud or at least misrepresentation on it?
Megan, before we talk about the legal part, let's talk about the human side of this. I went to the dry cleaner the other day, and I walked in front of the dry cleaner. I saw this big banner, #1 rated dry cleaner in Pasadena, California. I thought to myself,
no wonder you look so good, Brian.
Yeah, Joey, I was wondering, did you notice my shirt today?
It looks
now,
lovely.
What if that dry cleaner gets downgraded to number 20? Do you think my shirt's going to look any different if I come back on the show?
You'd still look fabulous, Brian.
It's not exactly the same.
Thank you, Joey. Well, okay, let's talk about the legal side, Megan. We live in such a robotic society now. It's all data-driven. But from a legal standpoint here, you have to show not only an intentional misrepresentation, but that the students had substantial reliance on that representation, which I don't think you can show here. I mean, who would have been investigating how many kids coming out of high school were in the top 10% of their class? But most important, you have to prove a causal connection.
But the kids aren't relying on the representation that 78% of the kids who go there finish in the top 10. They're relying on their number 51 on U.S. News & World Report, and they're applying to that university as opposed to one that was lower on the list. And as it turns out, the one that was lower on the list was maybe above GW University, and we're going to pick this up right after the break. Don't go away. Hi, Joey Jackson and Brian Claypool back with me now. Brian, so what about my point that there may be some students who relied to their detriment on that ranking in choosing GW?
Here's the problem, Megan. The ranking shouldn't be much lower than 51 because only 6% of the methodology used by U.S. News & World Report is attributed to what we're talking about with the number of students that were coming in from high school in the top 10% of the class. That's only 6%. 94% of the rest of the methodology deals with the credentials of the teachers at GW, research, endowments. So the punishment here doesn't fit the crime. There shouldn't have been a reduction in the ranking in the first place.
So Brian doesn't think it's material. He thinks if they reported the real number, 58% of the students were in the top 10% as opposed to 78%, Joey, maybe they'd be, what, 52, 53?
Oh, I see. So, Megan, it was just a little lie, a tiny lie. We should discount it because the lie was insignificant.
Well, that does matter in the law, materiality.
Well, it is material because ultimately you're talking about people who are performing academically in high school. And here's what the problem is in this particular case. The beneficiaries of this fraud that existed allegedly over the past 10 years are already presumably set in their careers. They've already gone off to graduate school with the reliance upon George Washington, which is a great school. I don't want to discount that. And again, I feel bad for the students, but they're set in their careers. Those who have been hired by major corporations and everything else, who knew? But now the students who were entering in, who relied upon what they believe to be an outstanding, reputable, and honest institution, they now, those freshmen, sophomore, juniors, and seniors are going to suffer as a result of this
Well, that's
fraud.
the thing, Brian.
No
Do they
way.
have an argument that
No way.
and there's a question about whether we don't know whether this was intentional or accidental, but the faculty are outraged. I mean, if they're
They are.
Jonathan Turley wrote a piece on jonathanturley.org that just he's at the law school and he's just so disappointed in them. But there's a question about whether it was an accident and so on. They've tarnished the reputation of the university, separate and apart from the ranking, and they tarnished the reputation of George Washington. So, Brian,
said, "I
can
can't
anyone
tell a
recover for
lie"?
that?
Megan, look, they might have tarnished the reputation, but here's the fact of the matter. I don't think anybody out there can show any proof of any harm as a result of having sent their children to George Washington University, and now they're out in the workforce and they can't get a job because, gee, the ranking wasn't right. I mean,
I predict
George Washington is a great university.
someone will make the
People go
argument.
out,
Gotta go.
look, if you hustle, you can make something of yourself.
Let's
Thanks, guys.
hustle, Brian.
We'll
Let's
be right
hustle.
back.
Take care.